and then we're going to battle. Hopefully we get to see some of that. In the top left side, we're going to look at the main base of the man who's been inactive for a little while, but then made a very strong comeback. And it's been part of the upper echelon of the European scene ever since. It is ShaDoWn, or ShaDoWn.
He was playing some Warcraft in between too, right?
Probably Warcraft, Age of Empires. They're playing all the different games.
Yeah. And the bottom right-hand side, it is PtitDrogo. Okay, so do we expect double gateway from both players, Roddy? Or is either of them going to hook up?
Especially since we're opening up with high ground pylons. I do think that anything other than a double gate would be surprising. Maybe if one of them would have scouted that the other person would go for the low ground pylon, then you might see them switch things up. But it seems like we have a normal start. I think we're going to save the craziness for Oxide and Blackburn if we ever get there.
Yeah, Oxide also has that ramp, so that makes it easier to do things like faster Nexi. Or faster Nexuses in there. So we'll see what happens. One per gas on the side of ShaDoWn. Not something I see all the time.
Yeah, they're just taking the gases early, but obviously want to make sure that they don't lose too many minerals. And the last thing you want to see is that your opponent steals one of your gases. That's honestly very bad, and you're kind of forced to build a Zealot, but you don't want to build a Zealot early on, and then your attack is going to be delayed. So they're just playing it safe, making sure nothing crazy happens.
Alrighty, so they're slowly saturating their gases now after they have already had full saturation on the minerals, and it's cool to see both players going for the same thing in that regard. And as the gateways and the cybercores finish, we are going to see potentially the first deviations, or perhaps a mirror of units, and it's going to be a mirror this time with the stalkers on both sides.
Maybe with the second wave of gateway units, Cats. Maybe then one of them goes for one sentry and a stalker. Maybe one of them goes nuts and makes double adept after double stalker. Or even double sentry.
What about double stalker? No longer a
four stalker opening is something that only Skillers and Roddy do.
Cool. All right, so we'll see what happens here. That pylon is just to scout the units that are gonna pop out of Drogo's base as ShaDoWn drops that Stargate as well.
Yeah. I wonder, that's funny. He started a gateway unit that he's going to cancel, ShaDoWn that is, just to give Drogo the idea. It's like, oh, I didn't drop any tech yet, mate. Don't worry, I'm building something. But he actually fired up a Zealot because he didn't really have resources for anything else. But he just didn't want to reveal the fact that he already built a Stargate. Kind of cool, like not super important, but hey, all the little things that could throw your opponent off, it's fun to see.
Very cool. And I mean, with that pylon on the low ground as well, he knew that he didn't need extra units to defend or anything like that, that Drogo was not planning to move out. So yeah, I really like it from ShaDoWn. Now, Drogo, and how do you feel about these sentries being made, Roddy? Like, he's going to get some value in scouting with them, but while he's going to have a hallucinated Phoenix, there's going to be a real Oracle on his side of the map, presumably, around.
Yeah, as long as he scouts in time and he gets his units in the correct position. I kind of like the heavy sentry openings if you're very good. I feel I always like whenever I see Showtime open up with a lot of sentries or Hearthstone, I'm like, yeah. And Drogo, I'm like, yeah. But if I start doing it, I already know that I'm going to die to something random. But I think if you're an expert PvP player and you just know exactly how to hold certain waves of aggression, I think the heavy sentry opening is very good.
All right, so here's the scout from one of those sentries, as Drogo will see that there is a second Overlord or Oracle on the way. The first Oracle's already here, though, but there is a shield battery in place. We'll see if there's one at the main as well. There should be. As Drogo doesn't rush there with his units. There's two Stalkers, actually, so that's good.
Yeah. That is good enough. The scout was in time. Now, ShaDoWn has gone up to double Oracle, and this is obviously where things can get a little bit feisty. I don't think you want to have only two Stalkers in your main base against double Oracle, because if I'm ShaDoWn, then I'll gladly sacrifice one Oracle in return for killing 7 or 8 probes, which is possible. And it seems like he's going to try to do that, but he may be disencouraged. Yeah, that's a good move out with that single Stalker of Drogo, because now it puts some extra shots up on that Oracle, and now ShaDoWn can go for it. Well done by Drogo.
Very, very well done. So the Stalkers move out to meet that Oracle as a result. And then it would have been, he would have lost an Oracle before getting to the main mineral line. And I'm not sure that he knows for sure that there isn't even a shield battery there. So very, very well done from Drogo. ShaDoWn, however, is not done. It's not done. ShaDoWn is not done as he's dropping a gateway. proxy gate.
Yep, dropping a gateway in the bottom side of the map. He obviously has Blink on the way. That will give him the potential to be very aggressive and warp in a few more units a bit quicker than Drogo would normally expect aggression. Because most of the time you don't want to attack if you don't have a Prism, right? Especially Blink Stalker against Blink Stalker. How are you ever going to make the difference there? Yeah, the hidden gate would be nice if Drogo can somehow pick up on this. Otherwise, it's going to be hard, because Drogo will most likely start building observers now out of his robo. He could be short a few units.
As a Protoss player, Roddy, do you feel pretty bad about this Oracles not finding any damage, basically? Or is that kind of the expectation? Do they still retain their value?
You don't love it, but as long as they are alive, I don't really care, because I know that as long as they are alive, my opponent has to respect them. And if Drogo has to respect them, he needs to leave Stalkers in his main, Stalkers in his natural, and then it's more likely that the attack that ShaDoWn is planning with his proxy gateway is more successful. So as long as they are alive, they are absolutely serving their purpose.
I see. So these guys are looking to blink onto less than the full army of Drogo, and that's how you get the edge and get the snowballing, the snowball rolling. So we'll see if he's able to do that, as he's going to poke with the Oracles in both bases, maybe setting up for stasis here in the main and natural. There is a cannon, though. Timely cannon from Drogo, and there's the stasis in the natural. There must be a stasis in the main as well. The natural stasis doesn't do anything, nor does the main. But at the same time, this is exactly what you were talking about, and that's less than the full army of Drogo, who will now get one of those shield batteries popped. The Immortal is here, however, and the rest of the reinforcements. So it looks like he's going to be able to pull back and push back the army of ShaDoWn.
Yep, it's a hold in the end, but you can definitely see that it got a tiny bit dicey at one point. But Drogo did have the upgrade advantage, as his forge was a lot earlier.
Yep.
ShaDoWn trying to make some magic happen here, but he ends up losing Stalkers, and Drogo now feeling confident that he can get away with the forward blink. While the other French, I mean, they're both French, right? But the red Protoss already going up to 4 bases. So he's just going to spam gateway units for a little while by the looks of it. And Drogo probably quite happy with how all of that played out in the end. It looked dire at one point, but hey, he killed both Oracles and didn't even really lose any probes at his third base. So well done, Drogo.
Not even mining time. That was very, very well done against the stasis traps from Drogo. But I do like the approach from ShaDoWn, because instead of just leaving the game, he's taking a very fast fourth. And if Drogo thinks that ShaDoWn is committed to this attack, if he thinks that ShaDoWn has to kill him, then this could pay off, right? Give him a couple of minutes on that fourth base, and all of a sudden we have a game in our hands again.
And both of them going Dark Shrine. Kind of love to see it. I mean, Dark Shrines are obviously quite cheap in this day and age of PvP, especially if we have 3 or 4 bases, and you may as well. It is obviously safe to say that Drogo has taken a pretty decent lead now, because that Stargate investment in the end did not pay for itself. I didn't hate the strategy, I didn't hate the idea from ShaDoWn, but Drogo's defense was just too good. And now Drogo's got a vastly superior army, up 25 supply. Should probably not shoot at his own Stalkers, because it's going to be hard to win the game like that. But I still like this move out from Drogo.
Yeah, Charger's about to finish as well. I'm almost surprised to see more Stalkers being warped in, but Zealots in the back now being warped in as well, making space for those Zealots by breaking the rocks, and ShaDoWn trying to catch Drogo. Not looking, but unfortunately for him, Drogo will be looking. He does have a shield battery to overcharge and a cannon, but it doesn't look like it might be enough.
Drogo should blink on top of the overcharge battery immediately. No, he disengages. I honestly think that fight would have been good enough if you blink towards the top left there with your Stalkers. Instead, he's going to do perhaps the more mature thing, and that's just disengage, wait for overcharge to run out. And if he goes right here, right now, then he still has an upgrade advantage, as +2 is already done for Drogo, but has not finished up yet for ShaDoWn.
Yeah, ShaDoWn is also hoping that Drogo doesn't have an observer there, so he's keeping those DTs as DTs instead of morphing them into Archons, which would be super helpful against these Zealots potentially. So if he knew there was an observer, certainly he would morph him. Now he is, but it might be a little late, as this is going to be the opening that Drogo is going to take to try and collapse onto the army of ShaDoWn, though a lot of those Zealots actually falling for Drogo, while Drogo doesn't have his entire army shooting at once. So ShaDoWn with somewhat of a hold here.
Absolutely. Now, decent hold. And once the Archons finish up, it is incredibly hard to win these kinds of fights when your opponent has Archons and you do not. There were still 2 shield batteries with a little bit of energy, and the cooldown on battery overcharge is not that long. So if that fight really would have gone to distance, there's a good chance that ShaDoWn has another overcharge available towards the end of it. I feel that Drogo could have ended it the first time, and it was Zealot, Stalkers, and Immortals against only Stalkers and 2 batteries and 2 cannons. But instead he disengaged, and that kind of allowed ShaDoWn to get his way back into this game.
All right, we'll see if that's enough, though, as Drogo is going to focus fire that Nexus. ShaDoWn a little bit late to it. Can he punish? The Stalkers actually not helping his case as they have trapped the Zealots behind them. And ShaDoWn trying to punish on the retreat, but Drogo has already done the damage that he was looking for with this, though a little bit sloppy himself on those on the retreat.
I actually think that ShaDoWn maybe should have tried to get the Prism there. Drogo has a lot of money in the bank, and that means he can warp in for days here. ShaDoWn can obviously warp in too, but all the Archons have fallen, and the Immortals are going to make a pretty big difference. As long as they can fire on Stalkers, which seems to be, well, it was the case at first, and Drogo is trying to do whatever he can, but the Zealots making the difference for ShaDoWn in the end, and he will pull off a hold, not before losing a Nexus, of course. Yeah, picked off the Prism, picked off the Immortals. Not bad at all by ShaDoWn.
Definitely, and I'm completely with you on the analysis that you were doing before, because with those two Immortals, they gain so much value when they're only fighting Stalkers, because then they're doing the full potential of their damage. Whereas when the Zealots join, when the Archons join, it becomes a much weaker army, because those Zealots are going to now be shooting at, or those Immortals are now going to be shooting at Zealots. So that's where Drogo lost his window, but he creates another window in picking up that Nexus, and again, he's going to go for this one.
Yep, really well done. ShaDoWn does not have any vision on the top side of the map, so all these Stalkers were just able to run in there one more time. Now, losing a Nexus is a big deal, but at this point, it's not the end of the world, because ShaDoWn still has a decent economy behind all of this, and he's actually the one tacking into Disruptors quite a bit quicker than Drogo is. And once those Disruptors are out, I mean, 1 or 2 Disruptors, cats, I feel like we can always fight. Can ShaDoWn find the Prism? Can he find the Prism? No, he cannot, because he wasn't paying attention. So in the end, this actually works out in a big way for Drogo, because now he's the one who can still keep pushing, and he picked off a few units.
Yes, indeed. And yeah, those Disruptors, I mean, if we can get a decent number of Disruptors, this game could still go into kind of a stalemate type situation where both players are going to be going towards that late game. So those Nexuses being picked off, they might be neutralized. ShaDoWn might have to blink across his own minerals if he wants to defend this, though he has been outpositioned yet again on the same area.
Yeah, this was a bit silly, right? Because he was thinking of chasing this army or ambushing it from the right side, but he's like, no, bad idea. But yeah, then he had to go all the way around again. Drogo blinks forward, picks up the first Disrupt, and he gets all 3. And I think that's all Drogo really needs, even though a lot of Zealots have been warped in on the left side. But there is no Archon on the side of ShaDoWn, and that Archon is really making some serious waves in this battle.
Yeah, DTs also finding their way onto that 4th base. 5 probes have gone down, and it's more for ShaDoWn to deal with. He does not want to be doing this right now. Very well done from Drogo with the positioning on those DTs and just overall micro in the frontal engagement. It looks like Drogo is doing it right now, and there doesn't seem like much like ShaDoWn can do. Yeah, that's impressive that he managed to pick off those 3 Disruptors.
Yep, I think ShaDoWn is going to beat himself up a little bit for going up the ramp in the first place, right on the right side, where he's like, I'm going to ambush the army. Then he changed his mind, then he was out-positioned again, and then it just became a very awkward fight where Drogo was very decisive, jumping on top of those Disruptors when he could. 1 or 2 Disruptors is not that scary, but once it reaches 3 or 4, it makes a big difference. For the second time this game, Drogo starts shooting at his own Stalkers, but it doesn't make the difference as Drogo still has way too many units left. GG.
Just a show of force at that point. And yeah, I think that ShaDoWn could have been sitting in that position if he, for example, at least mined those minerals or something, right? Like if he mined the minerals in between so that he could maneuver between those areas, but instead he has to go all the way around. I thought maybe he could have blinked back or something, but then you have Stalkers fighting against Stalker Zealot, and that would have been rough.
Yeah, then it's only his Stalkers. I think it'd be very difficult. Then there is a chance that Drogo jumps on top of your army, and by the time that those Disruptors make it down the ramp from the base with the Red Vespene Geyser to the low ground, up the ramp of your natural, yeah, you've probably lost half your army at that point, so I can understand that ShaDoWn wanted to keep his units together. That's a shame, because even though he lost that base, he wasn't necessarily really losing that game, because he was starting to get Disruptors out. And if those armies just stare at each other and then they fight, it's so hard for Drogo's army to win there, because what are you going to do? Blink into one Disruptor, but then the second one can fire and can kill you. But if you don't blink in, you're going to have to run away from the Novas all the time, and you lose a lot of potential DPS. So it's a bit silly for ShaDoWn to lose the game where he did, but very well done by Drogo. I do think he played super good.
Yeah, very well done by him, identifying that weak joint in ShaDoWn, that third base 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
That was the location that killed him. So yeah, I mean, personally, me as a player, I used to be really shy to go in the same. I'm like, it's not gonna work the third time, but Drogo made it work, man. He was like, yeah, that's where you're weak. That's where I'm gonna go.
There was that little moment in the center as well after ShaDoWn impressively defended the first big attack. He started moving out with the stalkers, right? And if he was paying attention immediately, if he was watching, he could have one-shotted that prism. And that would have changed the game completely too, because then Drogo can't keep pushing. But instead, he saw it a little bit later, and then he's like, oh, prism, do I go? No, I can't go. And he's actually the one who ended up losing units instead. So, tiny bit of a missed opportunity for ShaDoWn there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a scary blink regardless, right? Because there was stalkers and zealots.
Yeah, but I don't think he had to blink. I think if you just right-click a few more stalkers in range, then he would have been able to one-shot it, and then he could always defensive blink.
I see. That would have been cool. So it was that close in range, huh?
It really was.
That's sad.
And then obviously Drogo can't attack. Still pretty fun game, and some good army movement coming out of Drogo for sure.
For sure. All right, we have our next game loaded up, so let's go into it. It's going to be on 2000 atmospheres ladder edition, as are all of these maps, really. And the bottom left-hand side of it, it is PtitDrogo.
You're not wrong, cats.
Yeah.
All of them are.
Does it become redundant at some point? Like, do you just stop putting the ladder edition there?
No. It's forever going to be the ladder edition. In the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the man who's down 0-1. But it was a pretty close and competitive game. It is a ShaDoWn. If you read his nickname, obviously it says like ShaDoWn. But for the first 7 years that we casted him, we always called him ShaDoWn. And he has never corrected anyone. And that was just the way that pro players were often talking about him too. But I wonder, why did we call him ShaDoWn in the first place if it was supposed to be ShaDoWn in the end?
Well, if you read his nick with emphasis on the capitalization, then it's ShaDoWn. Right?
Yeah, maybe, right?
Yeah. Maybe we're still wrong many years after.
Maybe we should ask him once.
We should.
I mean, he's been to plenty of LAN events in the past.
That's true. A lot of probes being pulled there for that one probe of Drogo, so he has to be a little bit happy about that. Minor detail.
He tried to kill it.
Yeah. It got to the red, but it did not die. So
it will come back for seconds and be a little more annoying. You should always ever only pull your workers if you're 100% sure you can kill it. But it is tempting, because it would be lovely to just pick up that probe, because then ShaDoWn could immediately drop his stack or his expand, and Drogo wouldn't be aware of it.
Definitely, and some of these probes are more valuable than others to kill as well, right? Like in the sense that if you're up against a Zerg player, for example, like most of the time they've seen what they need to see, but in PvP in particular, there's so much that can vary in the early game.
It's going to be stalkers on both sides. This is maybe one of the maps, cats, where I wouldn't be super upset to see a 4-stalker opening. I don't think they are fantastic, and I do think that the sentry openings are better. But maybe if there is a map where you can potentially get something done, it is this one. Obviously, no ramp going into the natural. Doesn't take too long for your stalkers to make it to the other side of the map. But you can see that both players are aiming for sentries and expanse, which is just a little more solid across the board.
Yeah, and I was going to say it's a single sentry for ShaDoWn, but he has a second one as well now. So both players mirroring each other at this point. What do you think the first tech is going to be?
Twilight Forge probably from both of them. I did not hate the strategy that ShaDoWn went for in the first game, especially with the way that he went for it in the end. It's just, he was like 1 or 2 units short, not just to take a good fight, but a phenomenal fight. And it was also really annoying for him that Drogo had a cannon at the third, right? Because if it wasn't for that cannon, then it's only a battery and a couple of units, and maybe he would have taken a much better fight Stalker against only a couple of Stalkers of Drogo.
Alrighty. So, yeah, I think is it similar this game then? Are we going to see any deviations on that front? It looks like so far you're right. They're going both for the Twilight. No forges yet, however. Do we see Blink first into charge?
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes they even
Oh,
skip
there's
charge for a little while. ShaDoWn is gonna do one thing that's a bit different, and that is warp in 2 adepts. These adepts are incredibly random. You don't really expect your opponent to warp into adepts 4 minutes into the game. So sometimes these are the most successful adepts because in a way, you could say they make no sense. And often people only have a probe near their ramp for the the first potential set of gateway units, or maybe the second. But Drogo is not cutting any corners here. He kept that probe there forever, and he's going to be able to warp in his shield battery. Well done. Because if Drogo would have already moved that probe to the low ground, those adepts do get into the main base, and you end up losing 5 or 6 probes real quick.
Yeah, these two players know each other very well, of course. And still, those adepts, do they offer anything to ShaDoWn? Oh, they're gonna get caught, so if they die, they will not offer anything for sure. But being out on the map with them, I imagine that's kind of good to keep Drogo somewhat pinned back.
Yeah, it was more like you're trying to get lucky. That's what it is.
Okay.
You're spinning the wheel, and you just hope that the very first time you reveal the fact that you warped into adepts, that those adepts make their way into the main base. That's what you're hoping for. It's kind of the jackpot or nothing. And in this case, it's kind of nothing.
All right, that's a little bit rough from ShaDoWn, who's already trailing in this series. He is mirroring Drogo otherwise, though. But Defender's advantage in PvP, it's not so much of a thing as it is in other matchups, right? Because you're always warping in units aggressively. So mainly, it's going to come down to having a shield battery ready at that third base, I imagine.
Yeah, Drogo's lead is not that big that he can just storm to the other side of the map and take a fight, though. So I think it's going to be okay for ShaDoWn. It will all come down to, is one of them going to stop? Because sometimes they stop at 48, 49 probes, and they just go for a lot of gateways, and perhaps that is what Drogo is up to.
Both of them,
he's
actually.
dropping 4 gateways at once, which is 2 more gateways than ShaDoWn is building.
Okay, they actually both resume pro production now as well. But like you said, it looks like Drogo is looking to get aggressive. He's going to be moving out. He has a Warp Prism on the way, so he's going to be able to push out with that potentially. No shield battery at either player's third at this point in time.
I don't think that Drogo needs it, because he obviously knows that ShaDoWn made 2 adepts, and those 2 adepts should mean that he has a slightly smaller army. So I can understand that Drogo doesn't feel like he needs one. ShaDoWn, in my opinion, should get one. Especially if he's going to scout the amount of gateways that Drogo has. He doesn't really scout all of it, but he does scout there are no units at home, and that should also make all the alarm bells go off.
All right, we'll see if that's enough. There's a nicely tucked in shield battery there. Good amount of units here from ShaDoWn. Drogo's going to start by picking off a probe. Good force fields on either side, but they're a little bit better for Drogo. Picks up all the sentries, and now with an aggressive blink. Unfortunately for ShaDoWn, his battery's not yet done. Now it's going to finish. He's going to have to overcharge that right away. But now Drogo blinks on top of it right away. Takes it down. Probes are going to have to be pulled off the lines. And the Immortal might be the saving grace for ShaDoWn here.
Yeah, but even that's going to be hard, man. Because there's still so many Stalkers left. Drogo activates the barrier. And once it expires, he blinks forward immediately. I wouldn't mind even 1 or 2 Zealots in the mix here from Drogo. Just to take care of these probes. But even if the attack gets pushed back, he has already done all the damage he could dream of, and there you can see it warps in a few more Stalkers instead. Look at the numbers. He's 6 worker advantage. I gotta say, I'm surprised it's only a 6 worker advantage. It felt like it should be way more. I mean, I don't want to call it a hold because it's not over yet, but we are about to have charge on the side of ShaDoWn. Is this sort of working out?
I'm not sure. That was 16 probes going down, so the commitment from Drogo definitely paying off. Now 9 workers ahead. That's decent, and he still has a pretty good army here. I like the position of Drogo for sure, but if it is a fold, Roddy, if it is a fold, how likely is it that we stabilize here as an observer goes down as well on the way out?
Well, it seems like it is going to be a hold. We are obviously down 7 workers on the side of ShaDoWn, and he has not been able to find the resources to start +2. But the fact that he's still alive is quite remarkable, because the moment that his battery was a bit late and those force fields were as good as they were, I was like, wrap it up. This game is over. Drogo's got it, right? I don't know where he found the extra warpins from, but in the end, the final Zealots allowing ShaDoWn to stay in this game. Definitely behind, but he still got a shot.
Yeah, it really seems like that's what it was, right? Like the Zealots soaked so much damage for the Stalkers there. And Drogo not able to completely close it out. He still has a pretty good advantage. He's going to choose to drop a Dark Shrine behind it and maybe try to keep the ball rolling in his favor. Both players not really too far ahead or behind from each other in terms of upgrades. And ShaDoWn actually is also keeping up in terms of bases.
Yeah, that's impressive. Even though ShaDoWn is down 0-1 and he is losing the series, he doesn't look outmatched by any means. You can see why this guy has been finding a lot of success lately. He's definitely making a few good moves here. Doesn't take any damage from these Zealots. Drogo does do a good job in saving 3 out of 4. And you can see they're very evenly matched, but maybe the experience is making the difference here. As it does seem that Drogo is going to try to extend his lead by maybe sniping this 4th base. ShaDoWn has no map vision on the left side. He's going to send out 1 Zealot, but it's a little bit too late, cats. This Nexus is going to fall.
Yeah, the thought was there, but it was a little too late, like you were saying. And now ShaDoWn trying to reposition, but now DT's unopposed at the 3rd base. I'm going to struggle a little bit to get into the mineral line. Eventually they get there, and all of those probes are going to have to be pulled out. Suffer a lot as DTs are being warped in the main as well. I'm not even sure that we have observers, but I don't. There's 1 observer out for ShaDoWn, but yeah, this is looking like it's pretty over now.
Yep, 1 observer to deal with DTs in multiple locations is simply not enough. ShaDoWn is forced to tap out after all.